May 1st is International Workers' Day, which is very similar to, if you're in the US, Labor Day, but it's on an international scale. And one of the reasons that this day is important, it's to really commemorate the Chicago strike in 1886 for an 8-hour workday. And so this is a global movement that really recognizes how are people who are in the working class, who are going to work every day, being treated, mistreated, and then how can we do better? And so I found some information. This is all from So Informed, and I'm not sure if they're on what social media platforms they're on, but I found this on Facebook. But So Informed just kind of put together a list of data, statistics to really help us get a full picture of the working class struggles and things that need to be fixed at a systemic level that's happening in the US. And before I get into this, I just want to point out that on the Table of Diversity, which is a tool that people use to really understand diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's two columns right next to this red burgundy column. There's a column for socioeconomic status, and there's also a column right next to it for organizational role. And the reason those are next to each other is because they're intertwined. Oftentimes, your organizational role, whether you are an individual contributor, you're a frontline worker, you're a mid-level manager, senior manager, executive, directly correlates with kind of where you are socioeconomic wise. And so I thought that was a great way to tie in what today is International Workers' Day with the Table of Diversity, because when we talk about the Table of Diversity, it's not just some theoretical concept. It ties into who people are, how we show up, and how we can create cultures, environments, work environments that help everyone thrive. So I thought that this would fit perfectly, because oftentimes when I go into organizations and I'm talking about diversity, those two things aren't part of how people think about it. They're not thinking about socioeconomic status. They're not thinking about, your role within the organization, the work that you do. And that has a big impact on how we live and, whether or not we're thriving or we're surviving or whatever the case may be. So let's talk International Workers' Day. Of course, if you're in the U.S., some of this you're going to know. But the federal minimum wage is $7.25, and that number hasn't changed in 16 years. If, where did I see that? If the minimum wage had kept pace with gains in the economy's productivity over the last 50 years, it would be nearly $26 an hour today, which, when I'm working with organizations and we're thinking about what's that number, I still think that $26 an hour is too low. But if we're going to start somewhere, I think that's a good place to start. So if we're thinking about $7.25 per hour, that's $290 a week if they're working 40 hours a week, and it's about $15,000 a year. 36% of Americans are working at least one extra job to make ends meet each month. 4 million plus food service workers rely on tips to earn a living. 13% of workers in the U.S. are earning less than $15 an hour. That's insane to me. Over 6 million workers are considered working poor. And that's those who spend at least 27 weeks working, yet still have incomes below the national poverty line. So who would, we consider to be America's low-wage workers? 23% of workers earn less than $17 an hour. So that's roughly 39 million workers and their families. When we look at the gender wage gap, so if we're looking at the intersection of, what someone is making, their income, and gender, 19% of men earn less than $17 an hour. More than 27% of women earn less than $17 an hour. Now, if we're looking at the intersection of race and, income or socioeconomic status, if you watched one of my previous videos, then if we're looking at the intersection of things, we can't forget about race. It has to be included. 21% of white workers earn less than $17 an hour. 33% of Hispanic or Latino workers earn less than $17 an hour. 32% of black workers earn less than $17 an hour. So we're looking at the intersection of gender, race, and income or socioeconomic status. Over 40% of women of color earn less than $17 an hour in 16 different states. This is something that I thought was interesting because if you can recall, a lot of folks are like, if the jobs that are at fast food establishments and that are making really low wages per hour, those are for teenagers. Adults are supposed to start there and work your way up, or start there, get a degree, and then go on to better pastures. And according to the data, and this is from Oxfam America, which is an anti-poverty advocacy group, the vast majority of the workers earning less than $17 an hour are not teenagers. It's people 88% are age 20 and older. And so as much as that, narrative is put out there, it's just not true. Folks of all ages are working low paying jobs, and that's what they do, either because they want to, because they love what they do, or because they have to. They're not able to find a job that pays more. And then it goes on to kind of break it down further based on educators, service industry workers, domestic workers, and it says that they're all overworked and underpaid, which I completely agree. One of the things that I found really interesting is that in 2023, Senator Bernie Sanders introduced a bill that would raise minimum teacher salaries to $60,000, but it never gained momentum. And I find that to be so interesting. I mean, I feel like our teachers should be paid way more than what they're making. And $60,000, I mean, should be even more than that. But again, I'm all about progress and really push for perfection. But there have been efforts to raise the minimum wage for years that have stalled in Congress. Attempts to protect workers by addressing wage discrimination on the basis of gender, such as the Paycheck Fairness Act, that stalled in Congress. There's no federal legal requirements for paid sick leave, no mandated parental leave. There's no standard for paid vacations or holidays. There's a lot of work to be done. And I know that there are several cities and groups that are protesting and rallying today to bring more awareness and attention to International Workers' Day, but to really just kind of spread the word on, we're not done. The 8-hour work day was a good step in the right direction, but there's so much more that needs to happen. I mean, we've got to do a better job of raising the federal minimum wage as, the cost of living increases, as people are more productive. I mean, people are pushing out things and working harder than ever. And the 725 is just, it's a slap in the face. And I know most companies pay more than that. But we need to catch up in some major ways. So I just thought that was some interesting data to look at and to better understand International Workers' Day, May 1st. It's also referred to sometimes as May Day. And to look at that through the lens of the table of diversity and just how we are never just in one aspect of identity, that we always have to look at the intersections of identity to really understand the reality of what we are experiencing and living within day to day. So let me know what questions you have, maybe about International Workers' Day or the Table of Diversity, and I will be sure to answer those. See ya.